In today's video, I got a huge care package from Diatone, and it's some of their latest stuff which are really interesting, and we're going to have a look at today and talk about some of their designs and their choice of components here. So with that being said, just a really quick word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. PCBWay is one of the leading PCB manufacturers out there, and it is the manufacturer I use for my products. Now, if you're either a hobbyist and or looking to create a final product, PCBWay is going to be a really great choice with their 24-hour and also assembly services. So go ahead and check the links down below. So what do we have today? Well, first of all, as you can tell, we have a new type of packaging, which is pretty insane. This comes actually in a box, and let me just show you that. So now from Diatone, you'll be getting a box just like this. And when you open this thing and you flip it over, you get everything right here. However, you also do get a goodie bag, which we'll cover in a bit here. There are some really interesting things they've added. So before we go further, I just want to tell you that recently I've been very hesitant to recommend anything because, some things qualities have been dipping pretty low, and that's why you don't see me overly excited about new products that much anymore. I really have to put things through their pace or actually use them for quite a while or get some user feedback before I could really recommend something now. However, with Diatone's recent products, they have been some of the most reliable, and not only that, the most cost-effective. Sometimes they could outperform the more expensive stuff, which is really nice here. So let's take a look at one of their latest and newest flight controllers here. It's called the Mamba F405 MK3 Lite FC. Now, don't let the light fool you. It still has all the security features, or we should say protection features, and also a 9-volt regulator. Now, if we take a look at the accessories here, you get this. Now, at first glance, you might think it's a piece of paper or a sticker, but this is actually shielding. And if we grab a real close look right there, that's a ground pad. So you'd run a ground wire, and that should protect for any type of electromagnetic interference coming from the ESC. You don't really need this, but if you ended up somehow having a lot of electrical magnetic interference, you could stick this right between the flight controller and the ESC. And this thing is paper thin. It is really thin, and it's not going to increase your stack whatsoever. If you do have the chance, I highly recommend to add it. You have nothing to lose. All you have is to gain here. And they do provide us with all their new stacks, which is pretty awesome. And it just shows a lot into what they're actually trying to do. They're really trying to make a proper product here. And they're staying with the trends. For example, we have the all new 2004 motors here. They come in different flavors. I have the 1700 kV here. I'll be testing these with a bunch of 2004s in the upcoming video. We also do have a new, they just look absolutely insane. This is the 2004. It does come with multiple variants. I'll have them linked down below. The one I have today is the 2450 kV, and the magnets on this one are really stiff, but that's not the case with these because you want these to be as smooth as possible. And if we put them next to each other, what we see is they keep the magnetic force within the motor itself. It's not even coming out whatsoever slightly. It's not even sticking anywhere, which is a good sign. Now, I forgot why that's good, but I guess it's good. We'll just keep it at that because I'm not really that much of a motor guy. I'm more of a hardware guy into the flight controllers and even programming. I'm more of a programmer than a hardware guy, to be honest. And they also released their 1103 motors. Now, what I really like about this, even if we take a closer look here, they have this little protective layer right here. It's a little paper. So when you put the screw in, even if you get really close, there's no chance of scratching off the coating from the copper, or, but you do have the chance still of just going straight through and ruining the copper. But it's a nice extra security feature here, and it's really nice to see, and we should start to see more of this hopefully in the future from other companies as well. This, I would say, is a must-have right here. So now let's talk about the flight controllers, because these are not the typical same flight controllers that we are used to, and it's not just a slight name change. These have actually gotten a complete refresh. So one new improvement here is they've separated the voltage for the gyro from the main voltage of the flight controller, for example. And the reason that is, so it's just a LDO, so you theoretically should have less noise and no other components really interfering with it. Another thing, if we look at the connector here, you see that it's marked with FC, and they wrap the wire. And the reason for that is to also reduce any sort of interference. However, it doesn't even end there. They've also added more power delivery for your 5-volt rail, so for your camera rail, for example, and also a self-recovery insurance 5-volt power supply, which is, if anything were to happen to the 5-volt, it gives it a buffer time to store a bit more electricity in order to not have you fail safe or turn off your receiver or your receiver to boot off or anything of that nature. So I don't know why they've done that. I don't know if there was any issues going on with that before, but that is a pretty intelligent feature to have on something like these, because we haven't really had much innovation in flight controllers other than just adding a voltage regulator or two, or dual camera switching, a Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and that's about it really. Now, another thing with the LDO they're stating that it reduces ripple interference, so you theoretically should have one of the cleanest gyros on the market currently. That's in theory, and we will get to see that eventually. I'll definitely putting these on the build because these are my favorite flight controllers currently, in terms of the budget range at least. So now I've taken it apart here. Now, the ESC is still exactly identical as far as I believe. They didn't say they've done anything to it, but it does seem to have, I think, a bit more filtration here. And look at that, that's insane. They even have, I didn't see that before, but they even have a TVS diode in here to help protect against reverse polarity and everything of that nature. So that's really nice to see there. That's another step in the right direction where you have a bit of a safety net in case something really bad happens. So if you don't know what a TVS diode, it just means transient voltage suppression. It's kind of like a capacitor, and it'll suppress high voltage, and at the same time also working away as a diode would, which kind of could mitigate if you accidentally plug the power backwards, like the ground and the power. So that's really nice to see here. And it doesn't end there. They also have another one on the flight controller, and we see that we have more tantalum capacitors. These are more expensive usually, and it's really nice to see it very close to a 3.3 volt regulator and also the OSD here. And that just means you should have overall better clean voltage in this area, especially on the 3.3 volts. And we still do have memory right here, which again is really nice. And we have a 9-volt regulator. So if you wanted to go with a DJI setup, you're just compatible with both analog and HD setups, which is really nice. But you don't have a connector, so you'll have to solder it. And most people now use Caddx Vista anyway, so it's not really a big deal. So those are just some of the improvements on the flight controller, which is again really nice to see in such a budget stack. That's just insane to me. So now let's take a look at the F722 Mini. This is their latest 20x20 stack. That's F7, and we also have USB Type-C. And not only that, they've increased their pad sizes by 140%, and we still do see those beautiful telltale signs of tantalum capacitors here, which is really nice. And we also do have a barometer. If you wanted a barometer, you do have that here. Also memory right there, so for your black box logs, which could be very, very useful here. Now also make sure you always take note of this little sticker here, because if you put it backwards, you have a high probability of burning something, but at the same time, look at the safety feature right there. We have another TVS diode here to help against high voltage and also possible reverse polarity, but you know, just always keep an eye on that wire. Now for ESC, they're stating this thing is gonna go up to 40 amps, which is quite a lot for these tiny little FETs. Usually, honestly, personally, the 20x20 Mambas are, for me, from my previous experience, are not really great with high demanding setup, but I could be wrong here. But you only have 4 caps for that right there. And if you're going to use this, they do provide you with a low ESR capacitor, which I totally and highly recommend you add. Now they also do provide you with the XT60 and everything else you might need here. Also, I think they do provide you with an anti-interference board, and they do and a capacitor. Now make sure you do install that capacitor on this, no matter what type of load you're running on this, because these 4 will not be enough. It could be the root of all evil here. So just keep that in mind when building this and also purchasing this. So you always want to add that capacitor, especially on something that doesn't have much filtration here. Now, another little nice touch I just noticed right here is they've put glue. I don't know if it's a nice touch. I mean, if you get the stack, it's a nice touch. They've put glue on the wires here so you don't accidentally pull one out. And not only that, you have everything broken out here. So if you want to do just solder directly to this, you can. And you also have debug LEDs. So if anything isn't working, it won't light up and you'll know where your issue is. For example, if VCC is not booting up, that means you have no battery voltage. 3.3 is not booting up. That means your gyro and your flight controller won't boot. 5 volt and so on. MCU and the gyro, they even have their own separate lights, which theoretically tells me that each should be on a separate 3.3 volt regulator here, which again is really nice to see here. They're stepping in the right direction. If we take a look at the ESC as well, We do have edge plating. This is a very expensive process, and it does help somewhat with the overall current flow or the power delivery down to the motors. But again, highly recommended. Listen to me, add a capacitor. And I can't stress that enough. I will be noise testing these in the upcoming days, but be patient with me. I have a lot of things to get done right now. And well, that's it, guys. Everything's linked down below. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Let us know your experience, because that's a very important topic here. And I'm planning on releasing some sort of a system where people could actually leave reviews, independent reviews of their overall experience. And I think I figured out a way where people, you know, because usually people who have issues are the ones that come and complain. But I think I figured out a system, which I'll be discussing in a later video, of enabling that for everybody. So the whole community could actually review things independently and not need for one person doing one video, just using it once or twice. So that's one of my goals here, is just to have the community be self-sufficient and no need for anybody else. And well, that's it, guys. Everything's linked down below. If you could go ahead and check those out. Those do greatly support the channel. And download Ask FPV. Go help people. You win stuff. Go get help if you have any problems. And you also use the price comparison feature, which actually searches just about every single website known to mankind of FPV related. And new ones are added every other day. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.